All right. Here we go again, episode 118. Welcome to TGP Live. Today, I'm really excited about our guest. Many of you may not know his face, but you've seen his content online, and founder of PGA Memes, host of Home Course, and recently VP of Marketing at Northwestern Golf. Travis Miller, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to jump in and talk about some fun stuff. So been followed
Absolutely.
along your podcast, and we got to meet here recently, and you guys do great work.
Thank you. We appreciate it. We're a small pod, but we are golf addicts, and this is just a bridge for us to meet more people like yourselves, and we've been lucky enough to be inside the ropes and meet some pros, and it's great. So, as you know, my co-host Raf is a golf professional, and I'm a wannabe golf amateur. Played a lot of tournaments myself, and thought maybe I got a shot at the big show until you go and see these guys play golf, and you realize I stink. So right. But,
Yeah, these guys are pretty good out there at what they do. That's for sure.
just seeing them, like just hearing the audio of the ball. Right, I remember I watched John Daly play out here at the Greater Vancouver Open in the '90s, and it was the day he wasn't feeling all that good, to put it lightly, that day. But he would grab his 4-iron, hit it as far as most of the guys' drivers,
Yeah,
and it was just something cool to watch. But
yeah.
appreciate you being here, and um, what's impressed me. I was doing a bit of homework last night. In 2011, you were called out to be one of the top upcoming executives, and did really well in business. And Alert 360 was the company you were with for quite a while, right?
Well, I was with a company I started myself with some friends that was an authorized dealer for ADT and then Brinks Home Security, and then I went to go work at Brinks Home Security for a little over 10 years. And
Yeah.
then I stayed in the industry for a couple more years and finished up at Alert 360 as I was finishing things out and got into golf full time. But when I did get that accolade, it was when I was at Brinks. I started
Yeah.
over there when I was around 25, 26 years old, and
Yeah.
stepped into a kind of a bigger position at an early age, and had a good future when I started. Did some great things, but I'm definitely glad to be out of it, to say the least.
Yeah, it's the you made a great transition from the corporate grind, which never stops, into something that's a lot more fun. Obviously, everything becomes a grind once you get into it,
Sure.
but it sure helps when you kind of love what you do, and there's passion and humor and whatnot. So, but you mentioned before you started golfing at corporate stuff, right, with clients and all of that, right? Did you golf as a kid, or was it came on later?
No, I played baseball, and then got into football when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I had scholarship opportunities for both of those. I went on to play baseball, ended up getting hurt, unfortunately. But yeah, golf was something I kind of laughed at. I grew up in Los Angeles. When I moved to Utah during middle school years, I was a baseball phenom, and the school that I went to didn't really have much of a program, and
Yeah.
they struggled to even put a roster together. And so when I was starting varsity when I was a freshman, and I was certainly good enough to do that already, but just it was easier just because there wasn't really that many people that really loved baseball in Utah, or at least where I was from, like Park City area. And my senior year, I had to go around and recruit people. I had to find people to come fill spots, and tell them that we're gonna have a great time. This is gonna be an experience. Let's play together. And they had this golf team that was having the same problems. I mean, it was a small school, and they weren't really putting too many people together on the team. But anyone who was playing golf was certainly someone who could be taking a spot on the baseball team. So I just thought it was crazy. Like, who wants to play golf? Like, that's so dumb. I look back and knowing now the injuries that I went through and not making it pro, like I wish I was on the golf team and learned some things earlier on in my life. It's much easier to craft a better swing and develop good habits. But I didn't play golf really until I moved to Texas. When I took the corporate job with Brinks, I kind of got pushed into it through client relations. A lot of people would take people out to dinners or go to nightclubs. Lunches, you name it. And for me, a lot of my clients loved golf. And so I kind of found myself falling into that and really picked it up quick, really loved the sport, and saw just how much fun it was. It was a lot
Yeah.
different than what you see when you're tuning into a normal broadcast and you fall asleep, midday
Yeah.
watching a round of golf. And to me, I was out there, I'm like, this is a lot of fun. Everyone's really enjoying themselves, and you're outside in nature, really enjoying everything. And so I
Yeah.
fell in love with it really quickly.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. I mean, when I was a kid, I was offered to be sent to golf school because I've got it, history in my family. My great grandfather worked at St. Andrews, and my grandmother was Ontario ladies champion back in the, probably 100 years ago now, right? But it's like I was hooked on baseball and golf as a kid, and I thought, or pardon me, baseball and hockey, and sort of put golf in the back of my mind. And same thing, I regret not. Getting into it younger, or maybe I could have made it to the pros, but who knows?
Yeah.
It is what it is. I love having it in my
Yeah.
life.
You never know, man. I have a son who's 7 that's interested in golf. He likes it, and I'm certainly not trying to push anything on him, but definitely trying to put a club in his hand as much as possible. He loves football. He just wrapped up his fall football season, so we're kind of taking a few weeks off and
Yeah.
going to start getting him back into some biweekly kind of lessons to get just a few of those little nuances. It's better that he learns it from someone else. Sometimes when dad's too involved, it just gets a little squirrely. So,
Yeah.
if anything, like to me, golf is so great where you don't ever have to be a collegiate player or a pro player, but if you develop a good swing early on in your life and you understand the game and just how to handle yourself out there on the course, it can suit you so well in life and business and
What,
cultivating relationships, and certainly want that for him. And that's really the thing I have top in mind. But
yeah.
hey, if he turns out to be the next Scotty Scheffler, I'm not going to complain about that either. So
That wouldn't be so bad. It
no,
is an
not at all.
amazing networking tool, though. I found playing in the amateur circuits, there's only certain people that can play golf midweek, and it's usually business owners,
Yep,
right? And so I found like great long term clients out of it. If you can usually golf together, you can do some type of business together. I find it's been a great tool for that, as you can attest to in your career. Uh,
absolutely.
so, I was kind of reading about you. You kind of were you're surfing meme channels, killing time at the airports, and couldn't find any golf memes, and you jumped into PGA memes. So, how did that roll out? Did you just were you the guy making memes on your own, or did you bring a team together? How did that get started?
Yeah, I mean, there were some memes out there that were golf related, but there was nothing like specific, right? And
Mm,
being someone who was a road warrior, I traveled, hundreds of thousands of miles a year, and you know, worked with a lot of people around my age or similar styles of humor and stuff. You tend to find yourself sending jokes a lot, and meme humor. I think it's just so great. You see a lot of even corporate companies at its highest level using that type of humor in a lot of their marketing because it's so relatable.
yeah,
And for me, I've always had kind of a creative lens of how I look through things, even in the alarm space, which isn't the sexiest of industries. It was a lot of sales and marketing, a lot of digital marketing and stuff that we did with our national partners.
yeah,
And, so it just came naturally to me to like find creative and fun ways to poke humor at golf, and especially some of the individual players. And, I kind of thought about the idea for a little bit, pulled the trigger and created it. And it didn't take long for it to catch fire. There was definitely some electricity right out of the gate, and caught some steam. We got a lot of new followers. We got some press from some notable outlets in the golf space.
hmm
And for me, my next step in my career was to step into the C-suite, or maybe take over kind of more of a regional alarm company. And I didn't want to do that. It just wasn't something that I wanted to do. The industry was changing a lot. You had new companies entering the space like Google and Amazon that certainly have deep pockets, as you're aware, that were going to make it more difficult for even the companies like ADT or Brinks that had been around for decades and done really great things. And so to me, kind of being already in that space for a decade or longer, it just didn't seem very appealing to me. And we already had a change of guard with leadership, and we're having to make a lot of different changes. And so when COVID struck, which obviously caused a lot of devastation and heartache for people around the world, I seized the opportunity where I didn't have to be at the office every day. I didn't have to be so focused on what I was doing day in and day out with the people who worked with me. I could do my job with my eyes closed, and I could do it from anywhere in the world. And I already had PGA Memes kind of growing in terms of an audience, but I hadn't fully turned it on to be monetized. And I already had the kind of wherewithal of how to do that. There were a lot of things to learn along the way of exactly what to charge and what deliverables brands or companies really would like to see. And there was a lot of trial and error, and I had some, people along the way that I learned from. And it wasn't too long until where I kind of started finding the sweet sauce there of what worked and adding different verticals to work with brands, whether that's shows or podcasts or live events, and certainly the advertising that you can do on the page. And, it didn't take long. Was it like a year or so in where I was starting to revenue about as much as I was making at my, executive job in an industry that I'd been in for a long time.
Yeah.
And I kind of had to make the decision as the world opened back up, hey, am I going to continue to be able to do both of these? And I was starting to become more forward facing. Not a lot of people know who the person is behind PGA Memes. Certainly when I started doing more shows like Home Course, like you mentioned earlier, that was where people were kind of like, okay, yeah, that's the PGA Memes guy. But there were a lot of people who I worked with who had no idea that I ran a big Instagram or internet brand at all. Like they had no clue. And it wasn't anything that I'd go around like parading about, telling people. I certainly kind of wanted to keep it a little bit on the lowdown because I did have a great career and had a future there, and I didn't want to squander it if something happened. But the CEO at that time flew in from Florida for a variety of reasons, and one of which he wanted to meet with me. And he's like, "Hey, I know everything that you're doing, and I want you to know I'm very proud of you, And I'm like, okay, like, and here comes the and or whatever. But he's like, listen, I just need to know, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to take over my job in the next few years, or do you want to like keep building this up? He goes, I'll support you whichever direction it is that you wanted to go. I think he knew like I was 1 foot out the door, and he needed me to be fully committed, as I should be in that type of role. 100%. And I, without hesitation, I just told him, a few years back, I would have probably taken you up on the opportunity to follow in your shadows and footprints to take over your job. But where we're at today, I want to pursue this. I've had a lot of amazing opportunities that have already happened and unfolded, and I see a lot of potential, and it actually excites me. I wake up in the morning and I think about what more can I do, or who can I connect with, and I haven't had that feeling in quite some time with my current role. And he was like, all right, well, how much time do you need? And for me, I was ready to walk away from that lunch and not look back, but he needed a little time for me to help transition. And I think I was there for another 30, 45 days or so. And since then, which was in 2020 timeframe, I've been full-time just doing golf stuff, which has been great. Comes with its own sets of challenges, starting your own business, and it's a whole different grind with different things, but you're in a little more control, and you're also working in an industry that you're passionate about. And there's been even more great memories and things that have unlocked. So I don't regret it for 1 second. And it's been a really cool experience.
Well, it's like you've done a lot, like, because I saw you've donated to the Children's Medical Center.
Yes.
And you've done like some amazing things on the charitable side. And did PGA Memes put you in the financial spot to be able to do that, or did you already have?
For sure. For golf, I mean, the one thing that I see is a lot of the charitable work that's being done for athletes really comes through golf. Like even football players, basketball players, they hold annual golf charity classics and you name it. And that's one thing that's really cool about golf, whether it's business or, an engineer or a retired NBA player. A lot of us have a common thing in golf with our love and interest, whether we're a 20 handicap or a +4, you can play together and still enjoy your time together. And
100%.
Early on, I always wanted to have some type of an event space. I did a lot of events in the alarm industry where we brought together our partners quarterly and did really big events with big speeches and just from different guests. And just little sidebar kind of learning stations to help people learn and grow. And it was a really fun thing. I was always very proud of the work that me and my team had put into those types of events. Although I had never done golf events, I'd been to some, and to me, it was like, all right, I could do this, And so I put together the first one in 2020 in Dallas, which is in my backyard, and we had a great success. We had a full field of players, which you wouldn't think would be hard to do with a sizable audience like I have, but it is. People have to trust and believe in what you're doing, because if you're going to go to any golf outing, you and we could just go play golf today if we wanted to, if the weather permits, right? But are you going to invest just a little more to go participate in a golf outing? You may, if the cause is near and dear to your heart, or it's a brand that you're, it's polarizing or you're excited about, or if there's going to be notable people that are in attendance. And that first one was a little bit of a question mark. Not many people knew who I was or what, I was capable of putting together. And so was fortunate enough to have some really cool people there. We had two of the members from Dude Perfect at our first event, which was really cool. And we had a few other people that were there that definitely helped magnify what we were doing. And we shot content, and now we're able to start telling our story and donate money to the Children's Hospital, which is something that's near and dear to my family's heart. I have two children that have been actual patients at the hospital that we support. So, fortunately they haven't had anything major, but we have seen other children and toured the facility, and families that have had a lot of more unfortunate things that have happened to them. That's just devastating. And to be able to give back to a cause that is meaningful, matters to me, and it matters to my family. It matters to those that come and participate in the events. But that's been really one of the coolest things to be able to be a part of, not just to give back, but I just got off the phone with somebody just shortly before we got on this podcast. It's a guy who I met last year at one of my events that I've become friends with. And, I have others that I've met 5 years ago, still stay in close contact with. And we have a good percentage of people who travel all the way across the country to come to any and all of our events. And it's really fun to see the familiar faces. It's really fun to, just build those relationships, to see what they transpire and the good things that we can do together. And, that's really what I love about golf. And so to be able to have those events and those series is really special to me.
It's amazing. Yeah, golf, it bridges everybody together. Doesn't matter if someone's struggling financially and their buddy's wealthy, they all go play golf. It doesn't matter where you came from. It's just once you get off that first tee, it's amazing what you just play golf, right? And it's like
100%. All that stuff goes out the window for the most part.
I'll come home and my wife's like, "Hey, did you talk to so and so about this or that?" I'm like, No, sorry. We just golfed all day. What do you really care about, all of that? So, but you've also, golf's given you, direct access and invitations to some pretty amazing places, including the White House, right? And that's all because of golf, right? Like
it really is. Yeah, I met a friend through social media who at the time worked for Don Jr. and we made friends. I had him come out to one of our first, I think it was our second event, and hit it off with me and a small crew of my friends. And it's been cool to see his career progress on the politics side. He's younger than me, but he's a hustler. He does a great job at what he does, and he slowly has moved up the ranks. He did some work in his local community in Sacramento, then worked for Don Jr., then he worked for DeSantis a little bit. And then I was actually with him in Texas when he got the call that, Donald Trump wanted him to come work for him after his first term and head up some stuff. And, he's been a part of that team, ever since. And, I've cultivated a relationship with the Trumps as well through that. I met Don through my friend and met Eric separately. And on my media side of the business that we represent athletes and brands and golf courses, I was able to establish a relationship working with the Trump organization, work very closely with, Eric Trump's involved in all things running the business. Larry Glick, who's the executive vice president over there, he's a great guy. He's connected me with a lot of people. I owe a lot of credit to him. some of the relationships I've been able to cultivate. And they just have a great team of people, and their courses are beautiful. And we have the honor of going and shooting those, and we're producing a show for them that's launching to the public here soon that we're
Yeah.
really excited about. And then yeah, and then the White House, so I went to the Easter egg roll with the kids back in April. It was a busy day with a lot of things going on, but got invited to come back and visit my friend. Is he, he stepped out of his role here recently, but he was a deputy chief of staff, and we got to eat lunch with him in the West Wing, and we went and got to go to the Oval Office, and it was a great experience. Something that you just a pinch yourself moment that you never would think would come true, and
Yeah.
to think that I met all these people by starting all of this is pretty incredible.
What's it like when you're rolling up to the White House and you're like, "Holy shit, I'm just about to go into the most iconic building in the planet, arguably."
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's nerve wracking. I've been around that group so much to where I think my feelings were a little different than would it be for someone else. I've been around the president dozens of times, and a lot of the people that are core in his team, and so first name basis with some of these people certainly helps, and it doesn't take away the mystique of what's it going to be like, and just being nervous because I always have been, and I think that's part of something. If it matters to you, and you care,
Yeah.
like, you should always be nervous a little bit, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But it's a lot like going through TSA, man. You go through multiple checkpoints, and they, obviously there's probably background checks involved and everything like that. But when you go in, it's just a surreal experience with all the history and everything that, when you're walking those halls, just to think, who's been here and what's gone down, and the moment that you're in, just try to take it all in. And so I was really happy that my kids were able to go there and experience that with us. I was there 2 days in a row. The second day was more for business with the Trump organization, and that was really cool and special too. Just that's where I was able to go into the Oval Office and spend some time there with the president, and it was it's definitely surreal.
And he's quite personable when you're there with him, right?
Oh
And
yeah, no,
on
he is
TV,
for
he's
sure.
not
He's
hammered by press. He's quite friendly and
Yeah, I mean, I think he appreciates true conversation, and
yeah,
wants to talk about some things other than some of the normal stuff. Obviously, press would ask. I had the honor of doing an interview with him last August, so just a little over a year ago. That was just golf focused, and
yeah,
it was really cool. We were on the range with him. I got to ask 8 or so questions that kind of started with how he got started into golf, how he fell in love with it, what went down with him really acquiring his first property, and what's it been like expanding to all these properties now, not only domestically but internationally. And it was just cool, and at the end of the interview, we had a lot of time off camera, and he really appreciated, I think, the opportunity. And this was in the midst of his campaign, where he was extremely busy. I think he landed at like 2 a.m. that night before, or that morning of, and met me at the range at like 8 a.m. The guy just works nonstop.
wow,
He's crazy. And, he really enjoyed, I think, the opportunity of talking about something other than politics for a minute, and because I liked Donald Trump so much before he even got into politics. I always thought he was such a polarizing figure. He was always fun. I loved, just how he said what he thought. And
mhm,
you didn't have to always agree with what he had to say, but I just appreciated him for who he was. And I always respected him for that. And so when he started running for office, I started to follow along there, and obviously a big supporter of him, something I haven't shied away from. And I know
yeah,
that upsets a lot of people. The world's quite divided at this point in time, unfortunately. But
yeah,
you
it
know,
really is.
they're a great family. I've had a lot of time spent with them before I even worked with them, before there was any interest in them, wanting to help or support me whatsoever. And they've all just been great people, And so I've seen it kind of behind the lens, if you will, where a lot of people haven't. But he's a fun conversation to have. He's just like being around a regular person, even though he's probably the most famous person in the world. He's a billionaire and owns all these properties. When you're sitting there in the room with him and having a conversation, he's just like one of the guys. He's fun to be
Yeah.
around. He's really funny.
We can see that, and I personally have never had a problem with him. I know I take a lot of heat up here in Canada from certain friends for that stance, and he does say it as he thinks, right? Maybe if he stopped and filtered for 10 seconds before responding, a few little less, sound bites for the press to take on and run with. But and everyone loved him until he ran as a Republican. So
Yep. No,
and we don't
that's
normally
the truth.
we don't get into politics on the pod too much, but it's like this is he's a huge figure, obviously, in the planet and in the golf world, and PGA supports his administration and collaborates. So it's
Yeah, I mean, listen, their organization's doing great things. I mean, I mentioned Larry earlier, but he's been a huge fixture in a lot of the stuff they're doing in terms of, they're hosting DP World Tour events. They're hosting a
yeah,
PGA Tour event this year. They've hosted stuff with LGBT, LGPA, and then the Epstein Tour. I'm not too familiar with LPGA, so you might have to cut some of that out. But at the end of the day, they brought all these groups together, right? They're DP World Tour, PGA Tour, and then you've got Live, right? So the fact that they have venues hosting multiple events with these different leagues this year alone is pretty incredible. That's something that no one thought they would see possibly happening just a couple years back, But their courses are just truly world class, and so it's been really an honor to work with them. And we host a lot of our charity events at their properties too, because they are world class. And when they're closed down on a Monday, this gives opportunity for real golfers to come in and play these courses that cost $300, $400, $500,000 to join. That a normal person's typically not going to go pony up that type of money to go play that type of course, 100%. Right? So it's really been cool and a great relationship and working relationship that we've cultivated for sure.
Amazing. And we're getting close on the time here, but why don't you just tell us a quick shout about Northwestern Golf and the exciting product and launch that's been going on?
Yeah, for sure. So I got a phone call from a friend that's in my neighborhood, and he was like, "Hey, there's a guy I want to connect you with. Have you heard of Northwestern Golf?" And I was like, I don't think I have, outside of the university. And he goes, "Well, think way back. He goes, you remember these clubs?" And I'm like, "Oh, I've seen them. Now that you said it, I've seen them, but I still don't know anything about them." And he connected me with Mike Morgan, who's the CEO and president. And Mike used to be my friend's boss back at Titleist. He worked Titleist for like 30, 40 years. And they needed help with marketing. And they knew what we were doing with a lot of brands. And so we had a really good conversation. And I really loved what they were doing and what they stood for. And we just progressed into a bigger relationship. Ultimately, they extended an offer to me to come on as a partner in the business and become really like their head of marketing and help with their digital and get things off the ground and going. And, I jumped at the opportunity as fast as I could. And it's been a 6 to 8 month roadmap of getting through and navigating through, tariffs and figuring out launch. Mm-hmm. But we've launched our site, and Northwestern today, and what it always has been since the 1920s, is a brand that's for the people. It's affordable golf equipment that's high performance. I mean, you saw some of the top players in the world using Northwestern back into the mid 19th century and all that stuff. But now today, as we've relaunched, our set of clubs that we have today are, they appeal to more of like the 15 handicap person or someone who's just getting started. And there's a big gap in that space right now. Golf clubs are just so expensive. We saw an opportunity where we could make clubs out of the same factories as some of these other OEMs and make them a third of the price to really help fuel the growth of the game and get clubs in the hands of golfers that are really wanting to learn, but have their own set that's fresh and new. And, there's obviously a lot of forgiveness and a lot of pop with what we have. We have some great equipment. We have world-class designers that are behind what we've done. And, Thunderbird line is back, and really excited about all that. And we just signed John Daly, who's been a great friend of mine for the last 5 or 6 years. And he is going to be not only a world ambassador for the brand, but he's also a partner in the business. And we'll be releasing a signature set of clubs around John that will go to retail in 2026. And really excited about that. John's such a polarizing figure, but he's the epitome of what the daily fee golfer. He stands for a lot of what we stand for. He's a 2-time major champion and a hell of a golfer. But when you get to spend time with John, I mean, he's an amazing person with a huge heart. And, we couldn't think of anyone better to represent the brand than John. So we're really excited. We just had our first shoot with him just a couple of weeks ago. So a lot of the marketing is being released now, and being announced. But we have a shaft that's exclusive with UST that just got announced as well. That's really cool. We're calling our Speed Flex,
Yeah,
and
Mike told
you
us
can
about
get this stiff shaft that's 30 gram, 40 gram that you can hit, that we're seeing on average 20 to 25 yards further for people with slower swing speeds. We've even put it to the test as well with those that have faster swing speeds, and we're seeing crazy, tremendous results. And I'll tell you what, that shaft retails over $300, and we're going to have that actually in our driver in 26 for less than $300.
I'll send you my credit card after this show, and you can mail one up here.
Yeah, I mean, so it's just cool stuff. I mean, we're gonna have amazing products at amazing prices, and I couldn't be more excited to be a part of the brand. I think we're gonna do some really amazing things, and we will have stuff that we're already working through with prototypes that will be available for the scratch golfers as well. We have a forged line that will be coming out that will probably have prototypes for at the PGA show. We also have a pro line that will be probably more geared towards that, high single digit handicap to 10 or so. So we'll have something for everyone, come 2026. But right now, I mean, just so excited to bring back a brand with such rich history and, deep roots into the game. I mean, these guys sold more clubs than anyone combined back in the late 90s. And, by no means are we sitting here thinking we're going to come back and pick up exactly where they left off. No, it's going to be a lot of hard work. But we also know that there is a gap in the space. And, we think this is a great brand, great identity, and a great product to help fill it. And Mike, Joe, the rest of the team, now adding John, it's a great team of people that have the same mission in mind. And so we're really excited to come, out here in the golf space and really reintroduce this great brand.
It is, and I've noticed the vintage picture of Chichi Rodriguez and his caddy in the bag and the cigarette. It's one of the most iconic pictures in golf, and there's
all time.
Northwestern right there. So it's like, that is really cool. I've seen it.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, and there's been so many people who have come forward. They're like, man, my first set is this, and I still play this pitching wedge, or I have this putter, or my grandfather's set of clubs still in the garage, and they're Northwestern, and there's been, I can't tell you how many stories come across every day that we hear, and so as golf is growing and a lot of new people that are coming into the sport, we hope that those memories that they make are similar to those that are back in the day where their first set of clubs is Northwestern. And, we want to build lines of clubs around where they can graduate up and progress. As their game progresses, so can their clubs. And we don't have to hand them off to other OEMs. They could stay in the family and save a lot of extra money. Golf's expensive, right? So if we could save you a few extra bucks where you can buy some food at the turn, maybe some beers,
or play
maybe tickets to go to the Masters, whatever it is you want to spend your money on. Spend it on that, not on golf clubs,
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, Travis, I really appreciate your time. We run a little bit over. Apologize for that. Hopefully, you're not late for your next appointment. But thank you for joining us. And we could have gone on for another hour. A lot. So we didn't even get into some funny stories. But we'd love to.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we do it again soon? And I've got plenty of stories to share that are funny, and we'll go from there. But I appreciate the time, and look forward to seeing you guys do more good things down the road.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, you too.
Take care. There we go. We had Travis Miller. Check out northwestern.golf and, of course, PGA Memes. And hit subscribe and follow wherever you're watching us. We appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.